Hey everybody, it's 2 o'clock on Friday, and Fridays are the day that I do these lessons in life from leaders in Kamloops. I'm Arjun Singh, as most of you would know, and I'm joined today by very wonderful person in the community, John Zubak. And I know John for many years. John had a Sleep Country franchise. He most recently has been on. Well, he worked at TRU for many years doing stuff with students there, and we did a lot of communication, John, when you were at the university, helping students get a little bit of real life, real work experience. Don't know why exactly you're talking to me about that, but there you go. And then John has also been entrepreneur in residence at the Kamloops Innovation Center. John and I were also together on the Venture Kamloops board. But one of the crazy things and amazing things that I thought was so wonderful that John did as COVID kind of hit us, and this is one thing I didn't know about John, but John has a long history of cooking. And he started these amazing cooking shows on Facebook Live, and was really helping the community kind of about what ingredients they had in their house, and to really give them a sense of how to do all this stuff. I'm just putting my other phone on here so I can see what's going on. So, John, welcome. Thank you very much for being with me today. And if you want to talk about yourself a bit too, please do.
Well, there's not much. You got most of the intro right, but probably a lot of other things I do. I spend less time with technology and more time with just traditional businesses. That's the type that I had. I'd like to call myself semi-retired, but really, you end up being busier than ever before, and it's fun to stay involved.
It's great to have you, John. So let's talk a little bit about this cooking show, because this cooking show to me was, I think there was in my sense, it was thousands of people who were watching that. And it was really, you were so natural. I mean, you told me when we were getting on, before we're getting on air, that you have this love of cooking and recipes, and, you were able to get online and do this, but it just seems so effortless. And it seemed like you're doing this your whole life. So talk a bit about how that kind of happened.
Well, Arjun, I've been cooking all my life, so stepping into a kitchen, anyone's kitchen, is not really a big thing for me. I wasn't planning on doing a cooking video, but I was out there shopping for people at the time that flour was disappearing off the shelves, and everyone had bags of flour. We bake at home. I bake bread every week, and I was wondering how many people out there actually knew what to do with the stuff they were packing into their cart and stacking up. So right. I thought I'd put out a video on how to make bread, because people that come over to our house usually enjoy it. And that's really how it started, and it continued from there. I made the bread, and then I had to make a recipe for how you made yeast if you couldn't find it on the shelves, and it just progressed.
And then the mac and cheese, I think, was it with bacon, like the mac and cheese recipe in there, yeah. It was like just discovering John's cupboards and whatever I have here, and let's put it all together and let's make something. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, but it wasn't my kitchen. The kitchen that I used for those videos, ITEL Networks here in town, Danny Ring said, well, we've got our staff are all working at home right now remotely.
Oh, okay.
The kitchen. Oh, yeah, it's a huge kitchen in there, so really nice to have a space to be able to do that. And it was a ton of fun. And I think I was telling you earlier, my kids didn't learn how to cook from me. They learned from watching my videos. They went to a cabin, and they stayed there for 10 weeks during the peak part of COVID. So my girls were watching the YouTube videos afterwards, learning how to cook, and it was easier. You didn't have dad telling them, oh, you got to stir this a little bit more or turn the heat down. They could pause me. And I think as a kid, if you could pause your parent, there's nothing better than that.
Well, I don't tell my mom I told you this, but I would sometimes sort of agree with you. I mean, it's more like I was telling you that when I was teaching internet training back in the day, I had my friend who was a computer trainer teach my mom, and I taught his mom a little bit, because that wasn't going to happen that very well, us kind of doing it with our own moms. But God bless good parents, right? We're lucky to have them, and you're a good parent. You have great kids. So your kids are quite successful in their own right, eh? They're kind of, flying out of the coop, or maybe they're in the coop now, where they're doing great things, eh?
Well, they are. They're both over at TRU. We couldn't think of a better school for them to be at. One's in 4th year, one's in 2nd year, both in the business school. And the oldest one is doing a co-op remotely. She should be in Barrie, Ontario, Ontario Hydro 1, and they're actually allowing her to do her co-op. She's starting and doing her onboarding right here. If it's safe enough, she'll go there. But if not, she'll continue on that 1-year co-op. And what a great way to have an experience working remotely with a company.
It is, and let's talk a bit about that remote online stuff. So, I mean, I mean, I've seen you speak many times on entrepreneurial skills. I think the latest time was at the Venture Kamloops Accelerate event last fall we had in Kamloops, and I always appreciate your insight as to what entrepreneurs and business people, or just even individuals, should be thinking about in terms of moving forward. And we've obviously been on the internet a lot, and I was very thankful for the fact that in this pandemic we've had online access. In 1918 they didn't have such luxuries in so many ways, right? And so we can have these conversations. So what do you think is going to happen with this sort of new thing that we're doing, and will it continue? How much will it continue? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think all it did was accelerate us on the path we were already going.
Right.
Two different means to communicate a little bit better and faster. And with entrepreneurs that I talk with, I mean, some have had struggles because their business model doesn't fit as well into the new area, but then others have had other great opportunities because there's more needs and wants that people have. But probably the biggest thing is changing the way that we communicate. When I was in my businesses years ago, we stuck flyers in a newspaper who wanted to get in there more, right? Yep. And about 30,000 flyers to get through Kamloops at the time. But now you have to be able to talk in front of a camera, in front of a screen, because instead of talking to 30,000 people, you can be talking to 1 million people. Same message, but you're talking to them in their homes. And I think the biggest skill for anyone in business now is making sure that they can communicate their offerings to their audience. And it's not just about a post every couple of weeks. It's being out. In some ways, you're communicating daily. If you're a restaurant, I'd be bringing them in the kitchen, showing them what I'm prepping, because they're making their decision where they're going to go out.
So that transparency is really, really important, and that consistency. How do you feel about the nimbleness people have? I mean, I think one of the things I've kind of realized is that, like, people sometimes, we in this COVID thing, I was like, wow, what a big change, and people pivoted pretty quick, it seemed to me. But there's still that worry of whether it's it was just caused by a crisis, or whether we can bring some of that kind of like nimbleness into what's happening in the future. What are your thoughts about our ability as a society to sort of be quick and be nimble on our feet?
Well, maybe what's just happened has helped us realize that being nimble might be a way of life, and that we're going to need to constantly adapt. If you look at the huge corporations that existed 20 or 30 years back, a lot weren't nimble. You look at Polaroid. Polaroid was massive and huge. They're not there. Why? They didn't adapt. They didn't change. They wanted to go back to the way things were. And we see it right now in our society, in our community. Some people are embracing what's happening and they're looking at the positives, and others want to go back to what we had, which may not be there or may not look the same. And I think for our kids, the ability for them to understand that life is about learning all the way along, and when we stop learning, it's usually when we're in the home, right?
We talked earlier about a positive outlook on this. We talked about the fact that this is something obviously which is, people are dying. There's a health pandemic. Businesses are having to be shut down. People are away from those they love in a lot of different ways. But it was hard to go through all this and not come out with lots of positives as well. Like, it would almost, in my mind, it's not good for the memories of folks we're losing to actually, not be able to say, well, what are the positives out of this, and how are we actually? So, I mean, I was sharing with you that there's been days where I've been pretty down in the dumps, and kind of making sure that I'm orienting myself in kind of that positive mindset. How do you do that, and how do you think around the notion of just keeping people in a positive way of thinking around things?
I think when things are tough, one of the things you can always do is go out and try and help people, or do something for someone else. And I think a lot of that happen in a community because we need to be busy, right? And we need to feel like we're contributing, and sometimes we can't contribute in the way that we were contributing. But there's always something to be done. And this has brought us back to a little bit of our roots and how we lived for a lot of years. Families were together again.
Yep.
We've always eaten family meals, regular times. People were doing that again. People were communicating. When you can't go out and see your friends, you know what? Your kids start to think you're interesting again.
goes back to the kids, eh?
Well, we might be even smart after a while, but we learn to do with the things that we have. When we have a lot of choices, we don't always take advantage of all of our choices. We like having them. All of a sudden, when you take away a lot of things we can do, and there's fewer things, we start to appreciate them a little bit more.
Well, just you're making me think about two things when you're talking. One is that I spent a lot of time with my wife last little while and my mom, and I really enjoyed that. And they always used to bug me. They say, Arjun, you eat out far too much. I mean, like, you eat out all the time. You spend all this money. You have a problem with weight anyways. They often don't say that. I say that. And so, what's the deal here? So when COVID hit, and I was like, basically no Starbucks, no Timmy's, no like Mitt's Kitchen or Earl's or whatever, all these places. There's many more that I go to. And I started buying groceries and cooking at home, or my wife, my mom cook at home. Number one, they're amazing cooks. And number two, I was saving money, right? And also I started at this little place I'm sitting now, which is our home office, has become my sort of central sort of HQ for the last few months. It's not. I'm an extrovert. I like being out, like talking to folks, like hanging out with people. But it has been a really interesting exercise in like, what do I really value? What really means something to me, and what's sort of superfluous where I can kind of, I can go there, but I can also take it or leave it, right? So you begin to understand what the really important things in life are, and you want to tend to those things in a greater way. So, the relationship you have with your wife, you have. I don't have any kids, but the relationship I have with my niece and my nephew, and they're not in town, but I talk to them as often as I can. Not probably as I should, probably, but as often as I can is important, right? And so, and and it's interesting we talk about even going out, because I know right now the we're in this sort of weird space where we're sort of partly open as community, right? And the guidelines right now are interesting. So we had a regional district board meeting yesterday. We had it in the Delta Marriott Hotel in the ballroom there, and so we were appropriately spaced for work-safe reasons and work-safe guidelines. But I'll tell you what, it was super hard not to shake people's hands and super hard not to get close to folks when you're chatting to them. That sort of almost kind of uncertainty. When you're almost all shut or almost all open, it's really easy. But are you finding that too? I'm finding it a little bit challenging to kind of figure out how to actually operate in this kind of like half situation.
It's tough. I mean, I would love to reach out and shake anyone's hand. I went for 10 weeks. I didn't get to, hug or have any contact with my family while they're at the cabin. I sat on a chair 12 feet away from the cabin deck, and that's how we visited every second day. So, you miss those things. You try to find some other things in place, but you look at the restrictions and what they're talking about and how we're opening up. I have to laugh. I was born in Winnipeg.
Right.
So I'm here in Kamloops and in BC, and they're saying that we may be restricted to having to just travel within BC. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, people fly from everywhere to come over to here. You could tell me that for the next 10 years, we can't go international. We're stuck in BC. We'll be finding brand new things all the time. We will probably see and appreciate more of our province as a whole in this next while, because it's only in recent generations that we could actually fly around and travel. People vacation close to where they were. And even those that didn't, they learned to enjoy things that were around. And gardening, I did a video on that. I've got a great friend. She's a master gardener, Sherry.
Oh, yeah.
So she came over, like, we've always planted veggies, but man, we've got veggies growing in our front garden beds. I'm going to have zucchinis and squash growing across my grass. I won't have to cut that part of the lawn. And we're seeing it everywhere. My friend Colin Lyons Landscaping, Colin said they have never seen the amount of people buying up everything for seeds, potato, what have you. That just means that we're starting to enjoy things in our yard. We're getting out. We're going into fresh air. We're having some simpler things. We're having neighbors or friends come over. We're moving some chairs apart. That's not a bad thing. This is not like we're being put in jail here. We have a lot.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, when you look at the world wars as an example of incredible hardship in many places in the world, and still through COVID, there'll be hardships that we won't experience in different parts of the world, in parts of the U.S., right? But I think that you're saying, you're really showcasing the things that we are able to rediscover or discover for the first time that, maybe we haven't given much thought to, so, instead of going to Vegas, you're going to, you're going up to the Caribou and enjoying, whatever up there, or you're going to, the Kootenays is a part of the province which gets not a lot of attention from British Columbians, more from Albertans, right? So, there's beautiful parts of the province all over the place, and just wanted to sort of some folks in the comments leaving comments on Facebook. We unfortunately you can't see them because, but Tara Holmes says the most important thing in life is John's bread, number one. And number two, Peter Chan, thanks Peter for watching again. Peter is talking about, COVID has helped identify the need to have a diversified revenue streams, right? So in a business to basically have, various ways that you're able to sort of market and bring in revenue. And Tara is also, back to Tara, agreeing that she's also finding it a little bit challenging with the different guidelines and rules and, the kind of gray area stuff. But I think that I've noticed our community, like our business community, in many ways really step up. I mean, initially it was like, I would go for walks at nighttime around different neighborhoods and just look at the storefront doors and the signs on the doors. Have these little tiny signs that saying we're closed, or you have like these bigger signs that say, okay, here's our COVID protocol, and here's how you have to stand, and here's how you have to, and I think the people who were able to put together the COVID protocols, and now with WorkSafe coming with more guidelines and having more kind of official sort of regulations and help, I guess I'd say, people are starting to try and be as learn about it as possible. The X factor is kind of our own ability to kind of sort of meet those guidelines as human beings because it's so different for us. But it seems to be settling in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I remember the first time I saw colored duct tape in a 7-Eleven. And then within a day or two, it was all duct tape circles and boxes. Then it became the stickers, our Kamloops printers. All of a sudden, they were getting the stuff. They had it ready. They're customized. But we've all learned to look down. We look down, and we're trying to figure out, where am I supposed to stand?
Yeah.
I don't know what happens when all these things go. We're going to be lost. Like, what do I do now? And I go grocery shopping. They tell me when I can move next. We wait until they wipe down the counters. So this has been over a short period of time. We've adapted quickly. We're washing our hands more. It would be wonderful if someone could tell us exactly when we do the next thing or when these things go away. And no one knows, and that's part of it. We know it's going to end at some point. There will be a vaccine, but until then, we make a little the best. And there's a ton of business opportunities right now. Boy, the young people that are coming out of school, or people that are just thinking of reinventing their business, all of a sudden we have needs that we never had before.
Tell me more about that. So, what do you think some of those opportunities, or what are some of those forward things we're thinking about?
Well, just look at right now, the ability for a lot of people that don't want to leave out of their homes, different hyper-local delivery services where these are not just the Amazon bringing stuff to you, but vehicles that can go and consolidate from a lot of smaller retailers in our area that do a regular run of stuff. And that are in constant communication with these retailers or restaurants that can be putting out those messages to people. So maybe it's Sahali that's going to have this run on one day. These kind of things are going to take place because for a while we didn't know, we didn't want to wait in our lineups. And certainly when January weather comes around, if there's still stuff going on, we're not going to want to wait outside. And there's going to be things that are going to come with that. A lot of the younger people in tech, their ability to help others with communicating better, getting some of the video stuff, online ordering. There's going to be countless things. I mean, clothing, washing of things. Oh, let me turn this off here.
No problem.
There we go. We don't manage all of our technology well. So we're gonna continue to see new needs, and there will be new needs in manufacturing. There are going to be different ways that we socialize. there's $1 billion or multi-billion dollar industry in conferences, and I'm already starting to see people creating stuff so that you can still have conferences and trade shows where you'll enjoy them from your home, which means that we can take part in things where we don't have to throw airfare in. We can participate in other types of events and a lot of things that will have augmented reality components to them.
I think it's amazing. I mean, I think as much as, I really do feel like I miss sometimes being face-to-face in conferences, but I think the first time, you don't have to do it all the time. Like when I was on the road a lot for my provincial local government association, like sometimes I go to Victoria for like one meeting and I come back the same day, and that was, now in retrospect, that was a waste of time in a lot of ways, and a waste of money, because essentially you could have that meeting, on a video conference call and be able to have the same sort of ability to to do that kind of work. So I think there's things and I think are you in Rotary still?
I haven't. Well, I get involved when they have different things going on. I used to be with Aurora, but I haven't been an active member for a few years now.
Yeah. So with Rotary, one of the things that I was noticing was that I think Jen Schumann from the Rotary Club in England was watching still maybe our discussion right now. Jen, if you are, hello and welcome. So there is a Jenny. So there is a real opportunity for folks now to sort of just go. So I can Zoom into a meeting in the UK, or people from, like when we had our district Rotary conference, there's people from Zimbabwe, coming in and watching, what we were doing. And so that ability internationally to actually have that conversation. And again, like, would I have to go to Zimbabwe and meet someone face to face? Absolutely. But, that's not always a practical or easy thing to do. So it's really has opened up the ability to actually get such a great variety of things, to people.
Yeah, it's really strange. I'm working with one of the companies I work with is very progressive, and they're on a augmented reality or virtual reality office space. They created, their staff are everywhere in their homes.
Wow.
They have a virtual office that you enter into, and it's amazing. You create your own avatar and you can walk, you can shake hands, you go into different rooms. So it's very different from being on Zoom. In my avatar, I'm thin, and it's wonderful. But you go in all these little spaces that you stop, you have a private conversation. So unlike Zoom where if it's a large group, you're just talking to everyone. In this, you can have all your little individual conversations. There's theaters, and there's a whole trade show that you can wander into, and I see a lot of that coming and replacing. So we could go to a Vegas conference, but we'd actually be in our homes, but we could be seeing people we know and having intimate conversations. We're just not physically going to be there, and I think we'll see a lot of that in the next year.
I've been thinking a bit about that, just very, very tangentially, because I've been wondering about this idea of, like, I know I've heard, Second Life back in the day was a big virtual reality, sort of world going to people have been doing this for many, many years, right? And so the idea of doing a virtual reality or augmented reality thing where you do on your computer, you have the headset. I have a headset back behind me here that I just bought last summer for fun to kind of try things out. And so, it is interesting to kind of see the opportunity around that. And then you get into some really weird stuff like 3D holograms and all the rest of that kind of really sort of like, presence almost in a conference kind of thing, right? So it's it's very interesting. Rochelle Tonto, welcome to the Matrix, right? So I mean, it is a interesting thing. But I think with all technology, it can get to a place where it becomes almost, the technology becomes the overpowering thing, as opposed to technology serving human needs, right? So I think we have to be really always mindful with AI or augmented reality that there's a real human need that it's serving.
Yeah, and we've learned that in these last 90 days or so too, Arjun, as much as we have the ability to do this virtually. I think you talk to most people out there, we're all dying to get back to where we can actually get close to people, touch people more often. So maybe we're going in that other direction too fast without having that pause to realize that, okay, it's good to be able to move faster and quicker, but not at the expense of the things that we value most.
Well, I say so. I mean, it's interesting. I have a bit of a thought experiment with myself, thinking to myself, like when we get back to a more normal or whatever the normal looks like, and then we can actually shake hands again and get out and have more, these face-to-face encounters more, which we're doing in a small way now. We're getting back to more, but I'm talking like, full on like handshakes and those kind of things. Like what would I want to keep? What would I want to like, get back to, right? So I think I'd probably be okay with living, at home twice, 2 days a week, let's say, and just kind of working from here as opposed to and having Zoom calls and that kind of thing. Transportation's less, things are less. But I would love to get out, obviously, more, and do, 4 days a week, still kind of out and about. Like, have you thought about that? Like, what is your thought about kind of what the future looks like for your work?
Well, in my work, I've always been able to be flexible, but I see that employers now that I'm speaking with, that at first they were just trying to get through the crisis. Now they're starting to talk about a work week will look different. There will be more flexibility for some employees working at home. They can be equally productive. Others will want a flexibility where they may be in the office for some of the time, out of the office for others. So we'll have the ability to create a little bit more balanced lifestyle between work, play, pleasure, and probably be we'll be more disciplined so that we won't have all the distractions. I mean, at first, you come home and you're looking if sports is on or something else, you're gonna jump to that. But I think now we're starting to learn that we can separate our work day from our pleasure part, and as long as we're able to get out and do the social things that we need to feel good about ourselves, it may be a better lifestyle coming ahead.
Well, what I would say is, I mean, I've been in Riverside Park and Pioneer Park on a couple of different Fridays as well last few weeks, and I went for a walk with my friend Dan Hines a couple weeks ago, and it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful day, and people were out in the park enjoying, obviously mostly distancing, and that was really fabulous to see. And today I was chatting to a friend in Pioneer before we got on our chat today, and that was really nice to be able to be out. So there's still, outdoors isn't canceled and get outside and do stuff, but just be careful around the sort of distances and that kind of thing. So, Sarah Fowler says hello to you and myself. Joe Barry says hello to you and me. So those folks are watching us as we're chatting away here. John, any sort of like, we've got a few minutes left in the conversation. Any few final chats you have or final things you want to sort of leave people today?
Oh boy. I'll share a little story just about appreciation.
Yeah.
Back in an earlier life, about 30 some years ago, I was in Australia teaching diving on the Barrier Reef. And,
wow.
Those were good days. The last night that we'd be on the ship, we would take the students out for a night dive. And it was amazing. Everyone would come up because you just had a little flashlight and you could only see what was right in front of you. They come up and they say, "Oh, it's amazing. At night, everything comes out. Never seen so many things before." But the reality was, all the stuff they were looking at was always there, but we had clear visibility. We could see everything. And it's a lot like at times with life when we have so many things around us, we sometimes don't stop and look what's right in front of our face. And I think right now we're all getting a chance to look closely at our home, at our yard, to get to know our family, to get to know those close friends that we're seeing more often. And maybe if that's a real good thing, I'd like to leave that. I think that's one of the key things is just being happy and appreciating what's around you and not thinking that everything that's further away is necessarily better.
John, that's so wonderful. And I just so thankful for those comments. I think that's such a great way of framing it. Like, to sort of like be attentive to the folks and the things most around you and think about what you value most in life is a real thing. And I mean, and I think that, at the beginning of this, I'll go back to the cooking shows. I mean, at the beginning of this, I think you really helped a lot of people understand what was in their own kitchen and own pantries and be able to, make life happen really beautifully through food. And obviously breaking bread's a massive, thousands of years of things happening there. Right. So, and the magic that kind of enables. So just want to thank you for the energy you put out in the community the last 3 months, John, and thanks for all the work you're doing. And it's an honor today to talk to you. And I hope I know we'll talk again, you and I, but hopefully we'll get on one of these again and have some more chats and and share them with the community.
Sounds great, Arjun. I look forward to the day we can shake our hands again.
Absolutely. Well, elbow bump before that. Take care. And so I'll just end this now. We'll just stay on for a bit.